That, to me, is almost definitionally moral relativism, and I'm not remotely a relativist.
You mean like it's too idealistic to ever happen?
No, the idea that within a given culture something is moral that would be immoral in another culture. I don't care what your culture's background and practices are, female genital mutilation is immoral, period.
Well, I mean more like, let's say like in a general sense, like not so much like something like that, which is very, it can be clear cut in some
Well,
cases.
it could be the case. I mean, are you defining morality as only those things that all cultures must agree upon as objectively true?
No,
Or there might be a hybrid view where much of morality varies widely across cultures. But there could be some overlapping agreement on core moral principles, like the golden rule, maybe?
Well,
Give us an example.
but I mean, more, let's say, I'm going back to the Japan-America thing. In Japan, it may not be more moral to, well, it may be more moral to sacrifice your own happiness, well-being, your family's well-being to help the greater community, whereas here it might be more like take care of your family and your family will grow up and take care of the rest, you know, more, just a different way of
But
looking
is that
at it.
morality or is that cultural consonance?
I mean, that's
I'm pretty sure that
question I had.
we can say that one of them is more moral than the other, even if we can't easily identify which one it is. It's like, this is what I was talking about when I said that I think it's immoral to hold somebody responsible for something that's beyond their comprehension. So there are some moral questions that should be relatively easy to answer. Killing is wrong, as a general rule, exceptions, blah, blah, blah. And I can go for slavery or genital mutilation, things like that. Now, what you're talking about is in that area where we don't know what the answer is yet, and one of the reasons why we don't know what the answer is yet is because we're mired in constantly rehashing these same old issues that should be resolved. The issues that should be almost no-brainers at this point. But, like I said, I'm not a moral relativist. I think slavery was always immoral. It's just that people were unable to comprehend that it was immoral. And likewise, in those two scenarios, one of them is more moral than the other. It's just that we may not be in a position to identify which one is. And until such time as we are, we can't assert reliably a position.
Well, who would be the ones, how can we come to like a place where we start asking which one is more moral? Like how would we find a way that we get to that answer without it being perhaps an imperialist view or hegemonic in a way? I mean, because a lot of the thought we're talking about is coming from like male view, but I'm not dissing on it. I'm not saying I disagree with most of what you guys are saying. I'm just saying, like, how do we make sure that we include everyone's voice, and so everyone gets their, fair say?
I think everybody do it by doing it. There are exceptions. And Sam talked about this in the book, and I talked about it on the lecture, and that is, for example, we don't need to go to the KKK for their view on human rights. We already know that. We don't have to give them input there and kind of dumb culture down and pretend that there's some moral medium. Now, there may be a variety of morally correct choices, which is why I liken it to strategy in chess, for example. Show a mid-game position in chess to 100 grandmasters and ask them what's the best move. You might get a variety of answers. We may not know which one is actually the best move. We'd be pretty sure that the answers we got from those grandmasters, the experts in this, represent the best possible moves to our current level of understanding. And when Joe Bob just says that the correct move is to sacrifice your queen, which is obviously in this particular position going to lose you the game, we know that it's wrong. And so we're limited by our comprehension, and not everybody's comprehension is at the same place, which is why we end up talking about things as if there is moral relativism, I think.
We got some tag-alongs.
I think he was
Yeah, I was just gonna ask the same question she did, because you mentioned good for goodness sake, and it's not necessarily the lines of what is, but what is the good? Because if you're gonna say something, how do we determine the good? That was the only question.
You want to tag on to that? Are you gonna take?
Actually, yeah, I guess so. I'm a biologist, a neuroscientist, and it's been my experience, and I wonder if it's yours, that despite these kind of cosmetic differences between cultures, that they're very basically the same in what we believe is good. And and this comes out, I mean, if you look at us, you've got your t-shirts on, we're all Africans. I mean, we have some basic inborn, evolutionarily placed DNA that led our society to be as successful as it is, humans to be successful, that things that led to that success are the reasons that we are moral. They are, that was our morality. I don't know what your thoughts are on it. I expected that in the argument today.
Well, I had a bit dealing with the fact that because we're similar creatures with similar minds facing similar questions and similar circumstances, that it's not surprising that we find similar answers, and it should be not surprising at all that we consider similar things good. Unfortunately, we kind of strayed from the source of morality into other territory.
For many, many reasons.
I don't want to be the Sam Harris, advertising guy. And I realize that not everybody agrees. And I've heard Massimo Pigliucci, for example, talk about what he doesn't like about what Sam's putting forward. To kind of answer your question
I thought it was the same.
with hers, I don't know and I don't pretend to know, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it's probably not going to be that hard to identify what's good with relation to the well-being of humans, in much the same way that, and I'm stealing from Sam again, that it's not that hard to differentiate between healthy and unhealthy, even though we don't have a formal, clearly defined definition.
Yeah, I wanted you to know that, because to get back to Sam, he mentions my research in his newest book. And what I've been trying to do is measure societal health. And I published it in Evolutionary Psychology last year. It's an online journal, you can go see it. And what I did was I came up with what's called a successful society scale. And I took just about everything I could think of and threw it into there. Homicide rates, teen pregnancy rates, income disparity, STD infection rates, incarceration rates, poverty levels, corruption levels, and everything I could think of. And what I did, that is statistically analyzed. I did this for the first world nations, the top most prosperous 18 most prosperous first world nations. And the results are not surprising. And what it shows is the more secular and atheistic modern nations are, the better off they are. The lower the homicide rates tend to be, the lower the teen pregnancy rates, and so on and so forth. So this sort of thing.
Is this the JRS study?
That's the first one, 2005. This is Evolutionary Psychology last year. It's much more comprehensive. I ran statistical analysis and continuing this research. It's in Sam's book. He mentions it. In both of his
Yeah.
Yeah. So these things are measurable, and one of the most important things I think we need to start doing is being more aggressive against religion. There's a tendency to kind of say, well, religion's okay, maybe, and atheism's okay. The data actually shows otherwise. There is no such thing as a well-run religious nation, and it can't exist. The reason is that when you have good societal conditions, it automatically suppresses religion. Because religion is not deeply inset in human beings. It is not genetically programmed. It's not because of fear of death. It's not because of some transcendent connection. Basically, religion only flourishes when societies are badly run and people are anxious and they're looking for a God to protect them.
What is the cause and effect then? Because you just asserted that religion is the cause of these bad social
No.
statistics, or are you asserting that
it's a little bit
religion
too-
is a symptom? Which is
Religion, it's a bit of both, actually. But what we do know is that there's no such thing as a well-run society that has high rates of religiosity. We do know that rates of religion can correspond to rates of anxiety. That as people become more impoverished, they become more
Right, we get
religious and
that, but
so on.
why do you think that eliminating or reducing religious belief is going to
No,
suddenly
well, hold on, I didn't
reduce
say that.
the
I never
symptoms?
actually said that. What
Well,
I
you
said,
just gave these folks the impression.
no, what I did was I was trying to explain that well-run nations, well-run societies suppress religion because people lose interest in the gods.
Do they have to suppress religion, or does it evaporate naturally
It's-
as material well-being
It's
increases?
because
I've heard both
as
theories.
material well-being goes up, people lose interest in the gods.
Right.
That's basically it. Now, also, there is good evidence that right-wing religion adds to societal problems because they are for preventing contraception and teaching kids abstinence only, which drives up the pregnancy rates. The United States is the most Christian first world nation. We have the highest abortion rates. We have the highest teen pregnancy rates and so on. The Bible, there's been a study actually done. They went and did this. I was waiting for somebody to do it. You know how they've done studies where they've exposed people to video games, violent video games and so on? They tend to become more violent. They did it with the Bible. They actually, and they did it partly at Brigham Young University. They had students read the Bible, the God-ordained violence in the Bible, and they became more aggressive. So we even have this sort of thing going on. So the message I'm trying to get around here is that these things are measurable scientifically, and the science is indicating religion cannot work in societies. Partly because conservative religion harms things, but basically a really well-run society, religion just fades away.
What,
No,
sorry.
I'm sorry, but the historical evidence contradicts everything that you just said. And it goes back to what Father Hans mentioned, was called a huge uproar about the Gulag in the Soviet Union.
Because it's wrong. It's
But let me finish what I'm saying. Let me finish what I'm saying. The historical evidence contradicts everything that you just said. I know people who have personally suffered at the hand of people who were atheists. They were forcing them to become atheists.
Okay, here's
So
how
I'm sorry, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
you're losing a lot of credibility.
Here's the truth. The
with
first
what you
people to
just said.
ghettoize
Because
Jews were the Catholics in the first millennium. Catholics ghettoized Jews, and they did it until the 1800s. In the 1800s, the Rothschilds, the Jewish bankers, massively sent loans to the Vatican in order to try, because the Vatican was about to collapse financially. They did this and tried to help the Jews in Italy. It failed. The United States set up concentration camps in the 1800s, run by Protestants, against Native Americans and called them reservations, the Trail of Tears. The idea of concentration camps, and also the Germans did this to Africans in the first decade of the 1900s. Hundreds of thousands of Africans were killed by German Protestants and Catholics. The idea of eugenics came up was developed by Protestants and Catholics. It's a brilliant book you should all read, by the way. It just came out by Derek Hastings, Oxford University Press. It's just out. It's titled Catholicism and the Rise of the Nazis. He shows that the Nazi Party was formed by Bavarian Catholics. Adolf Hitler was a Catholic. And by the way, he was not a standard Catholic. I don't want you to disbelieve that. The Vatican was actually not all happy about this. But there were giant Nazi rallies in 1923 to defeat this. This idea that the Nazism has anything to do with atheism is completely obscene and wrong. The Nazis were thoroughly religious. They were not conventional Christians. They were basically similar to Aryan identity or Aryan nation, Christian identity, and that sort of thing. But these people were God believers, all of them except Martin Bormann, by the way.
I think this guy back here has been very patient. Go ahead.